During the Flavian period, AD 69 and on, there was a look that had many variations, which was called the orbis. It's a look where a crown of circles or curls were put around the front of the head, quite tightly put on wire, and then they softened off and there were variations. Again, as we always say, true to the look but with variations. If you're doing a play or a show or something where you need to recreate this type of period, how can we do it for now? We're going to use today's tools as always, and we're going to give you a version of the orbis which is quite easy to do and again can be varied. So I'm going to take a section from the beginning just in front of the ear. So we don't want it from the crown at the back, we want more of this hair to move back. The orbis is really just a focal area at the front of the hair, the rest of the interest will be at the back. So I've done that on both sides, and now I'll just take my clips out the way because all I was doing was sectioning off. And then just out of interest, in case you were wondering, at the back all I've done at the moment is loosely put the hair in a ponytail, just so that I don't pull it forward into the hair that I'm working on. I'm going to take a section, I'm going to lift the hair up, and I'm going to use a bit of thermal spray, and then I'm going to use a roller. So a hot roller, keep those ends nice and smooth, and I'm going to roll this down and then secure it. These are going to be my orbis shapes that I'm actually creating now, so just want to make sure that I keep it nice and clean because I am going to use grips or bobby pins to secure this, but obviously I want those to be out of the way, and we'll talk about that as we get around to actually combing the hair out into its shape. There's a little bit more intricacy to the back, so these will actually have time to cool down while you're working on the rest of your shape, and I'll be starting that off for you. You'll be able to see that, and then we'll come back to it because obviously watching the whole of the back being twisted once you've got the idea will be a little much for you just to watch over and over again. So once you've got the idea, then I'll let you take a little break while I work, and I will continue with the back. So for now anyway, we're just doing this front area. I'm using a smaller roller because I want this orbis to gradually decrease as it goes down, and then I'm just using one more roller at the end, rolling this hair round, making sure it's nice and clean and smooth, and then I'll just use a pin and I'll just put that in there. I'll move over to the other side, and I'm actually going to roll this one over this way again. I don't want a central parting, I want everything to blend together, and by taking this over, spray. By taking this over, I'll actually cover up much easier the parting area. So just bring those ends under. Remember, the skinny end of your comb is your friend. It'll bring those ends under, and then you can just comb them if you need to make sure they're not buckling. I'll bring that down next to the other rod and then pop in my pin. Now I'll come across and I'll work the other way. So I'm actually going to split this twice. Just look at the bulk of the hair that you have, and that'll tell you how many rollers you need to put in. So there we go. It's moving in the opposite direction down, and I'll just grab another clip and pop that in. Split this twice. You could do this with hot sticks, you could do it with hot rollers, you could do it with perm rods if you wanted to have a really frizzy sort of front to the orbis, so that it was really, really curly at the front, because the smoothness which you're going to see us create at the back actually allows the shape to have its period influence and brings the whole thing together. one more roller in the front, and then we are done with the rollers. And they're pretty much taking on the shape of the look that we're going to end up with. It's curious over centuries and millennia how so many looks blend back to lots of things that we do now for either weddings or red carpets or just people going out, because there's a lot of things that have just stayed true all the time, like braiding and other things that we're using on a constant basis. They come into fashion, they go out, and they were always around. I'm going to work through the center of the back to start this, and so we're going to use our clips to move the hair out of the way. And the reason I'm doing that is it's just that I can make this a lot cleaner. The section's quite fat. Again, that's for this particular look. Could it be thinner? Absolutely. I'm working down to the nape of the neck, pushing the hair out the way I don't want, and as always, clip everything out that you don't want to work with. Less confusing and much easier just to get on with what you want to do. I'm now going to come to the top, and I'll get our lovely model to bend her head just slightly so that you can see. Actually, the other way. That fooled you. So you can see we've got the section here, fairly fat, even on both sides. And then, like a lot of our ancient work, we're twisting this hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the top, and I'm twisting the hair into the center of itself. So you can see that, twisting, twisting. And now I'm going to gather the hair below it up. And that's what's great about sectioning everything off, because I'm just twisting it and bringing it through the center. And you can move your head back a little now. So move your model's hair, or your client, or your actress, or your whatever, in the position that you need to. Again, if you're working with wigs, this is not going to be a situation you even have to worry about. But if you're budgeted, then obviously you're going to have to work with real people, and so you're going to have to actually get those skills down to getting that hair done. Okay, keep that as smooth as possible as you work down. And then as I come to the end of this, comb out, get a bobby pin, put the pin across the hair just to hold it. In fact, I'm going to go through half of it. If you do the whole thing, it'll just it'll open the pin up, and then the pin's useless again. Keep this smooth, and now in this bottom, you're going to split this into 3. And you're going to braid this hair. So now I'm pulling it across itself. So you've really got to hold this nice and firmly. You can get someone to help. If you've got an assistant, that's great. I've got a clip, so that works out fine. Once you start to braid, you can take the clip out and just make sure it's sitting okay. And then you can continue to work this down. So once you've braided this, it'll stop this hair undoing. If you didn't hold that and braid it straight away, then it'll undo. If you want to get all the rope twists in first, or the twists, sorry, not the rope twists. If you want to get all the twists in first and then braid, that's fine. Just put a row of the bobby pins across the back, and that will work quite nicely too, to hold everything until you're ready to braid down. I'm just going to take a small elastic and just put this on the end for now, just to hold it. And now I'm going to let my clip go and take a second section. So I'm going to take my section down the back, and I'm taking it slightly wider the top because I want to bring these in slightly. If you want it to go all the way down, that's entirely up to you. But now I'm going to clip again to keep this hair out of the way. And now at the top, I'm just going to start again, high up, grab the hair from both sides, pinch it, turn it, pinch it, turn it, pinch it, turn it. By pinching it, you're holding the hair together and you're now creating one twist next to the other. I'm going to continue working down the back now that you have the idea of this, and then braiding, and then you'll see how this looks as we start to finish up the back area. So here we come into our last twisted area. So again, pinch, twist, all the way down. So you can see I've taken them so that they just become smaller to this last one, and you'll see why, because we're actually going to use this to wrap around the hair. So I've got that down to the bottom, and just like before, give this a comb, because obviously you've just twisted everything, so you want to make sure this is combed out, and then you can start your braid. Now, you know I put a bobby pin across to hold the hair before I braided. If you find, I mean, this slight looseness is fine. Again, at the time, a lot of it would have been wigs. But anyway, if you're working on these looks and you find this is unraveling, what you can do in the bottom, you just have to make sure that it doesn't get seen, is at the back of the twist, open a bobby pin, go to the back of the twist, put the bobby pin in and slide up into your shape. You don't want it to be seen, so you want to make sure it's on the inside, but that'll hold the hair. It'll stop it falling out. So as long as it's behind and you don't see it, you can put that in and it'll just hold the hair. So it's just another little tip. So I'm taking my 3 sections again, and now, as before, I'm going to just braid this down or plait this down. The ends at the time would have been tied off with twine, or even you could use a gum to hold them. And obviously, if they were wigs, it was much easier to do that because you could use, you know, an Arabic gum or whatever, a wax, hold those ends, clip them so that they're completely blunt and clean on the bottom, and you know, much nicer either with the real hair or particularly with wigs or pieces that you were using. If you're doing this for today, what I would suggest is use a little elastic, as I have on the ends of this, but then once you've finished it and you're ready for the look to be finished, get some thread, wet the thread, get your cotton wet, and then tie very tightly where the elastic would be at the very edge of the hair. Wrap it round and round and round, tie some knots so it's nice and tight, because the wetness will hold it much stronger, and then you'll have much more of an authentic finish on the bottom. But for today, obviously, I'm just showing you the style, but it's good to know some little finishes for the ends. And if you were doing this, as I said, if you were doing something like this, and you were using somebody's hair because you haven't got the budget for wigs, that sort of thing, but it's short hair, say it's a bob, obviously you couldn't do this on layered hair. But you can still twist all the way down to the bottom of the bob, clip it across, and then use matching braids on the bottom just to have exactly the same look. And so you could make a short head of hair actually look quite authentic. Just working to the bottom there. And then we'll just grab a little elastic for now. As I say, change them for thread should you need to, just to get a more authentic look. So now that we have them all finished, we're going to take these smaller ones that we did to the side, which are the ones just by the ear, the one we just finished and the one on the opposite side, and you're going to wrap. You can bring it tightly together or you can keep it loose. I'm going to keep it loose. The main thing that you want to do is make sure that these ends go on the underneath, because I'm going to use a grip or a bobby pin to hold the hair. So I want that to obviously be underneath so that it's not seen. You don't want anything that's modern being seen on this look. Going to come across from the opposite side with the other braid. Same again, just pull that across, go to the underneath and just secure that, and then bring it out as much as you want it to be. So also, if you wanted this to be more dramatic, you could use the natural hair as we have here, but then you could also add extra braids. I mean, you could have a whole slew of braids coming down here and even more across, holding this hair in place. So I got them fairly loose, but I know they're secure underneath. That's basically going to be how your shape sits in the back. So twists and braids, very popular during these periods. And now we're just going to undo the front, which is going to be our orbis area, the orbit, the area that orbits the head that goes around, excuse me, dropping pins. And that will just create the shape. Now, what's the firmness of the hair? What are you holding it with? I'm holding it with bobby pins. So do I want to back comb? It really depends. You're going to want this to be fairly stiff and fairly in place, but you do want to make sure that it's got a real neatness to the shape. So I'm probably going to back comb just at the root and then immediately comb that back out. Again, my bobby pins will not be seen. I'm going to use them through the center so that you can't see it. And if you wanted, this whole front area again could be a hairpiece. You can do this quite easily, working with a small wig area, not a full head wig, and you could do this, place that weft around the front, and then you don't even have to do the hair. You could pull the whole of the hair back. But again, according to what your budget is, you're going to either want to use the actual model's hair, and that's going to be a little bit different for you because you want to make it look as real as possible. So I'm back combing a little into this just to get my lift. I'm going to comb over, and the nice thing is it is an orbit of curls, so, and I'm keeping it fairly large. You can see the different lengths there that I've got. Doesn't matter because it's going to be tucked underneath. So I'm going to use my finger, as we have with many of the other shapes, make sure that the hair sits back, and then I'm going to bring it back down on itself. I want to make sure, now I'm going to pull that up again just because I've got so many flyaways around the front. You want to make sure you've got as clean a line as possible. Obviously it is natural hair, so you've got the hairline to think of, but you want to just tuck that in and get that as smooth as possible. Okay, once I've got that in place, I'm going to use a dark pin. You can get the pins now where the actual pin is matte on the ends. For years they've been shiny, which is so annoying because obviously if you do have to have it in an area where it shows, it's going to show that bit more. If a pin has a matte finish on it, then it will blend into the hair a lot more easily. And I'm really pleased to see that the manufacturers are beginning to do that now. Not all of them, but some of them. So hopefully the shout out will get us some more matte finish pins so that these ends don't just like blare out at people that they're in there. Okay. Keep it as smooth as you can on the front and on the back. Remember, the shape's going to show all the way round. I want to make this a little tighter, so I'm going to come up to the end again. Wrap this around my finger. Just take your time, get that around your finger. Make sure these ends are sitting in, or else they're just going to poke out of the front. So, okay, I've got that there, and now I can draw this down. So I've really just taken these back into the position that they were, which is great because it's the one time you've put a roller set in and you're actually allowing it to sit in place. History can sometimes be nice to you, like when Madonna did this in the 80s and you took hair sets out and basically just left them in the roller marks and everybody thought it was fabulous. Of course that never lasts for long, but it was fun at the time. Okay, Again, I want this to sit back on itself. Just tuck that under. Those ends under. Take your time with these ends to make sure they go under. And get that around my finger again, and then face that backwards, but then I'm going to allow it to go into the center, as I said before, because you want to keep it clean on both sides as much as possible. I wouldn't be against, once we put this in, having a small curl made with matching hair color, and you could put another one down here so that you've got a more of a false image. You've got extra hair that you wouldn't necessarily have on a head, because that's the whole idea of these looks. They're ancient crafts of having the hair exaggerated into shapes. These are people with money that would be doing this. It's the affluent that have got the time always to do their hair. This is most probably one of the only times in history where everybody is into themselves and how they look, because they actually have the time. And even if you haven't got a large budget, people still want to look good. In most times of history, as we've spoken about in other videos, it's the royal court or the affluent at the time that are setting the pace, because it's only the courtiers or the people of money that could do this. But today is a different story. Going to come across here now, moving into this side. And if you remember, we put that one the opposite way. You'll see now that it helps, because it doesn't mean we have a central area of parting. If you found that these started to drift, again, another little tip, you can pinch them together with a pin through the center. Don't go to the end on the back, don't go to the end on the front, but through the center you could pinch it together. If you've rolled on base, which means you've rolled the roller onto itself, you actually shouldn't have that problem. But if it does arise for you, as I say, you can just add that pin in there. So again, just getting this into place. So again, a little bit of back combing just at the root. I'm going to wrap it around our finger. So we're just following the same pattern we've been doing all the way along. Tuck those ends into the center, bring it up to the shape you've already created, because we are working on base, which is great. And I'm just going to reach across and get myself a pin. I can pinch that together and just hold it, because I know where my shape is sitting. Put my pin in, and because his sides are slightly finer, I'm just going to tuck up into the shape above. And what I mean by finer is, obviously from the temple to here, you haven't got such a bulky area, and so all I'm doing is facing my pin up into the other area, so I can still hold all this hair, but it's not going to poke out at the bottom, because I don't want it being seen from the front. I mean, you wouldn't for any modern do either, but for this particularly, they didn't even exist, so you definitely want to make sure. Just pop your head over slightly, that's it. Again, coming to the end, rolling this around back into the pattern that it started with when we first rolled it up. Those ends under, take my time with that. This is a finer area, it's right at the ear, so there's much less hair. So again, I want to make sure that it's nice and firm to the shape. Take a pin again, and I'll move that pin in to the scalp and upwards to the other curl. And actually, if I had them, I think I definitely would add just another curl in the bottom and the top to the two sides. Just to fill it out that little bit more. Make sure they're sitting up correctly. And And so you have an orbit of curls around the front, moving into the twists at the back, and then the traditional braids. Yes, there's elastics on here. Change it for cotton if you're using, or thread, whichever country you're in, for the bottom. And then we've used the outside braids to add this. If you wanted the extra braids to hang down, a false braid that matched colour would work as well, obviously. All you're wanting to do is use as much natural material within the look so that it has an authentic feeling to it. So another early, ancient sort of look, showing that they had a lot of flair, and a lot of the looks actually are still used today, but just in a different manner. We've used modern tools, as always, in most of the cases, to replicate these looks. But again, budgetarily, you're using the person's natural hair, you're using modern tools to get an old look. If you have wigs or pieces, you can replicate this. You could work on a mannequin or on a headboard so that you could get the whole thing finished and then just place them afterwards. So hope you like it, the Orbis.